Summer 1935, 7:47 p.m. Ulysses Rollins had 13 minutes to kill Bumpy Johnson, $15,000. That was the price Dutch Schultz, the most powerful mobster in New York, put on Bumpy's head. And Rollins's 6-year-old daughter? She was the collateral. Rollins sat in the Alhambra restaurant, hand trembling inside his jacket, fingers wrapped around a .38 special. 20 feet away, Bumpy Johnson was eating lamb chops, back turned, vulnerable. Perfect shot. 200 people filled the restaurant. Jazz music played. Waiters moved between tables. Couples laughed over wine. Nobody knew that in 13 minutes the marble floors would be covered in blood. Nobody knew that one man would lose an eyeball. Nobody knew that what happened next would end Dutch Schultz's war on Harlem forever. But Bumpy Johnson knew. He'd known for 3 days, and what he was about to do wouldn't just save his life. It would prove that mercy and violence aren't opposites. They're weapons, and Bumpy Johnson knew how to use both. This is the true story of the night Bumpy Johnson stabbed a man 36 times in front of 200 witnesses, ordered spaghetti while stepping over the body, and sent a message that made the most powerful mobster in America back down with one phone call. Based on documented events from Harlem, summer 1935. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand the war that led to it. By 1935, Dutch Schultz had a problem. His name was Bumpy Johnson. Dutch had built an empire. Bootlegging during Prohibition made him millions. He controlled speakeasies, warehouses, politicians, cops. He'd survived wars with Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, every gangster in New York who thought they could take what was his. But there was one place Dutch Schultz couldn't conquer: Harlem. Not because the police protected it, not because it wasn't profitable, because of one man. For 2 years, Dutch tried everything. He sent enforcers. Bumpy sent them back in ambulances. He offered bribes. Bumpy rejected them. He burned businesses. Bumpy rebuilt them and made Dutch's men pay for the materials. By the summer of 1935, Dutch Schultz was desperate, and desperate men make dangerous decisions. June 1935. Dutch's social club in the Bronx. Dutch Schultz sat at a table with a cigar and a problem. "Bring in Rollins," he said. Ulysses Rollins walked in 5 minutes later, 6'4", 240 pounds, covered in scars from a fight with Bumpy 6 months earlier, 36 stab wounds that should have killed him. He'd survived. Barely. Dutch slid an envelope across the table. $15,000. That's yours if you walk into Bumpy's favorite restaurant Friday night and put a bullet in his head. In public, in front of everyone. I want it loud. I want it bloody. I want Harlem to see what happens when you defy me. Rollins stared at the envelope. Didn't touch it. "Where's my daughter?" Dutch smiled. Cold. Empty. Safe. For now. You kill Bumpy Johnson by Friday night, you get her back. You don't, she dies. Simple. 3 days earlier, Dutch Schultz had kidnapped Clara Rollins from her school playground. 6 years old. Red dress. Stuffed rabbit. Gone. Rollins had come home to find a note on his kitchen table. Kill Bumpy Johnson by Friday night, or your daughter dies. You'll get her back when the job is done. DS. Now, sitting across from Dutch, Rollins understood the truth. This wasn't a job offer. This was slavery. If anything happens to her, Rollins started. Dutch cut him off. You're not in a position to make threats. You're in a position to make a choice. Kill Bumpy, save your daughter, or don't, and live the rest of your life knowing you could have. Rollins's hands shook, not from fear, from rage. But rage doesn't save a 6-year-old girl tied to a chair in an abandoned warehouse. Money does. Bullets do. Rollins reached for the envelope. "Friday night," he said quietly. "The Alhambra. I'll handle it." Dutch leaned back, satisfied. "Make it painful. I want Bumpy Johnson to know he's dying." What Dutch didn't know, what Rollins didn't know, was that Bumpy Johnson had already heard about the kidnapping. Not from Rollins, from a 12-year-old shoeshine boy named Jerome who worked outside Dutch's social club. Nobody paid attention to Jerome, just a kid. Shining shoes, invisible. But Jerome wasn't just any kid. He was on Bumpy Johnson's payroll. $20 a week to listen and report back. Tuesday evening, 9 p.m. Jerome walked into a barber shop on 135th Street. Bumpy was getting a shave. Jerome waited until the barber stepped out, then whispered, "Mr. Johnson, Dutch paid Rollins 15 grand to kill you Friday night at the Alhambra. But there's more. Dutch kidnapped Rollins's little girl 3 days ago. He's holding her until the job's done." Bumpy's eyes opened. He sat up, removed the hot towel from his face. "How old is the girl?" 6, I think." Bumpy was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket, pulled out a $100 bill, handed it to Jerome. "Find out where Dutch is keeping her. I need an address by Thursday morning." Jerome nodded and left. The barber returned, razor in hand. "Everything all right, Mr. Johnson?" Bumpy leaned back in the chair, closed his eyes. "Friday night just got interesting." Thursday morning. Jerome returned with an address scribbled on paper. 142nd Street, East Harlem, abandoned warehouse, 2 guards. Bumpy called Illinois Gordon and 6 of his most trusted men. "Dutch is sending Rollins to kill me Friday night," Bumpy said. "Rollins is doing it because Dutch has his daughter." Illinois frowned. "So we take Rollins out before he gets there?" "No, we let him come." "Boss, listen, if we kill Rollins, Dutch just sends someone else, and that little girl dies. No, we're going to let Rollins walk into the Alhambra. We're going to let him try. And then we're going to send Dutch a message he'll never forget." Bumpy turned to one of his men. "Go to the Alhambra, find Marcus, the head waiter. Tell him I need to see him tonight." Thursday night, 11 p.m. Marcus Williams sat across from Bumpy Johnson in a small apartment on Lenox Avenue, sweating. 3 days earlier, a man in a suit had approached Marcus outside the restaurant. "Dutch Schultz will pay you $2,000 to spill hot coffee on Bumpy Johnson Friday night." Marcus's mother was dying of cancer. The treatments cost $6,000. He was desperate. He'd taken the deal. Now, sitting across from Bumpy, Marcus couldn't speak. Bumpy leaned forward. "Dutch paid you $2,000 to spill coffee on me tomorrow night, right?" Marcus's throat went dry. I didn't." "How much do you need for your mother's treatments?" Silence. "How much, Marcus?" $6,000. Bumpy reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope, set it on the table. $8,000. $2,000 extra for what you're about to do." Marcus stared at the envelope. "I don't understand. You're going to spill that coffee tomorrow night, but not on me, on Ulysses Rollins, the man Dutch sent to kill me. Do you understand?" Marcus was trembling. "Mr. Johnson, if I do that, Dutch will kill me." Bumpy stood up, walked to the door. "Dutch Schultz will be too busy running to worry about you. Take the money, Marcus. Save your mother. And tomorrow night, you do exactly what I said." Marcus looked at the envelope. His mother's life. He took it. Friday, June 14th, 1935. 7:30 p.m. The Alhambra restaurant was packed. 200 people. Families. Couples. Politicians. Musicians. The jazz band played Duke Ellington. Waiters moved smoothly between tables with trays of champagne and lobster. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter echoed off marble walls. At 7:30 p.m., Bumpy Johnson walked through the front door. Gray suit. Fedora. Calm expression. The face of a man who'd stared down death 100 times. Illinois. Gordon walked beside him. 2 associates followed. The hostess led them to table 14. Back corner. Wall behind. Clear view of the entrance. Always prepared. Bumpy sat down. Ordered cognac. Started talking to Illinois about a numbers operation uptown. To anyone watching, it was a normal Friday night. But under the table, Bumpy's hand rested on his switchblade. At 7:35 p.m., Ulysses Rollins walked through the front door. Dark suit, hat pulled low, hands in pockets. One hand gripping the .38 Special. The hostess led him to a table 3 rows from Bumpy, close enough to see him clearly, far enough to avoid suspicion. Rollins sat down. Marcus, the waiter, brought a menu. "Can I start you with a drink, sir?" Rollins didn't look at the menu. He looked at Bumpy Johnson, 20 feet away, back turned, vulnerable. Whiskey, double. Rollins ordered steak, barely touched it. In his jacket pocket, folded carefully, was a photograph of Clara, his daughter, smiling, holding a stuffed rabbit. Rollins pulled it out under the table, looked at it. Tears blurred his vision. He'd tried everything to find her, searched warehouses, threatened Dutch's men, begged, screamed. Nothing. Now he was sitting in a restaurant about to murder a man he didn't even hate, just to get his daughter back. Rollins wiped his eyes, folded the photograph, put it back in his pocket. "I'm sorry, Clara. Daddy's going to fix this." He checked his watch. 7:55 p.m. 12 minutes until the signal. The waiter would spill coffee on Bumpy. Bumpy would be distracted. One shot to the back of the head. Then Clara would come home. Rollins's hand moved to the gun in his waistband. Just 12 more minutes. 20 feet away, Bumpy was eating lamb chops, talking casually with Illinois. To anyone watching, it looked like a regular business dinner. But Bumpy was counting the seconds until Marcus made his move, counting the distance between his table and Rollins' table, counting the witnesses who would see what was about to happen. At 8:05 p.m., Marcus picked up a silver coffee pot from the kitchen. His hands were shaking so badly the pot rattled. He walked slowly through the restaurant, weaving between tables, the hot coffee steaming. He approached Bumpy's table. Illinois saw him coming, tensed. His hand moved toward his jacket. Bumpy raised one finger. Wait. Marcus stopped beside Bumpy's chair, leaned down as if to pour coffee, whispered, "Mr. Johnson, I'm ready." Bumpy took a sip of cognac, whispered back, "Good. Now walk to Rollins. Make it convincing." Marcus straightened up, turned, walked directly toward Rollins's table. Rollins saw him coming. This was it, the signal. Marcus stopped beside Rollins's chair. "More coffee, sir?" Rollins looked up, confused. The signal was supposed to be at Bumpy's table, not his. I didn't order. Marcus tipped the pot forward. Boiling coffee. Rollins's face. Explosion. The scream that erupted from Rollins wasn't human. Raw. Primal. The sound of flesh burning. He fell backward. Chair crashed. Hands clawing at his face, his neck, his chest, where the coffee had soaked through. The .38 Special slipped from his waistband, clattered across the marble floor. The jazz band stopped. 200 people turned, and Bumpy Johnson was already moving. 20 feet. 3 seconds. By the time anyone understood what was happening, Bumpy was on top of Ulysses Rollins. The switchblade was open. First stab, shoulder. Second stab, ribs. Third, fourth, fifth. The blade moved like a sewing machine. Up and down. Fast. Precise. Brutal. Rollins tried to fight back. Tried to swing. But the scalding coffee had blinded him. His punches hit nothing. Bumpy didn't speak, didn't grunt, didn't scream. He just kept stabbing. Women screamed. Men shouted. Families scrambled away from tables. 200 people pressed against the walls, watching in frozen horror. 15 seconds. 36 stab wounds. When Bumpy finally stopped, Rollins was on the ground in a spreading pool of blood, gasping, one hand pressed to his face, the other reaching weakly toward where his gun had fallen. Bumpy stood up, straightened his tie. His suit was covered in blood, Rollins' blood, but his face was calm, expression unchanged. He looked down. That's when he saw it. Rollins's left eye was no longer in its socket. The blade had caught it during the fight. Now it hung against Rollins's cheek, still attached by the optic nerve, swaying slightly with each labored breath. The restaurant was silent except for Rollins's wet, choking gasps. 200 people, frozen, staring. Bumpy crouched down beside Rollins, close enough that only Rollins could hear. Rollins tried to speak. Blood bubbled from his lips. My daughter. Dutch has my daughter. Please, don't let her die. She's only 6. Rollins was crying now, blood and tears mixing on his ruined face. I'm sorry. I didn't want. I had no choice. Bumpy was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that nobody in that restaurant would ever forget. I know. Rollins' good eye focused on Bumpy through the pain. 7 years ago, I had a daughter, Bumpy said quietly. Ruth. She was 6, too. I was in prison. Sing Sing. 5-year sentence for armed robbery. Ruth got sick. Pneumonia. My wife wrote me letters begging for money for medicine. $50. That's all it would have cost to save her. Bumpy's voice didn't change. Still calm. Still cold. I sent word to my connections. Told them to get the money to my wife. But mail took 3 days. Money took a week. Connections took time. He paused. Ruth didn't have time. Rollins was staring at him now, forgetting the pain, forgetting the blood. She died on January 3rd, 1929. I was sitting in a cell 40 miles away. Couldn't hold her, couldn't say goodbye, couldn't do anything but sit there and stare at the crayon drawings she'd sent me. Stick figures, houses, hearts. Bumpy stood up, looked at Illinois Gordon. Send 6 men to 142nd Street, East Harlem warehouse. Find Clara Rollins. Bring her to her mother. Do it now. Illinois nodded and disappeared through the kitchen. Bumpy then looked around the restaurant, at the 200 frozen faces, at the blood pooling on the marble, at the weapon in his hand. He folded the switchblade, slipped it back into his jacket. walked to Rollins' overturned table, picked up the menu from the floor, turned to Marcus, standing nearby, pale, trembling. "Marcus." "Yes, Mr. Johnson? I suddenly have a taste for spaghetti and meatballs, extra marinara sauce. Is the kitchen still open?" Marcus couldn't speak, could only nod. Bumpy walked back to table 14, sat down, adjusted his napkin, took a sip of cognac. 5 minutes later, Marcus brought out a plate of spaghetti and meatballs. The sauce was deep red, almost the same color as the blood still pooling 20 feet away. Bumpy picked up his fork, twirled the pasta, took a bite. Then he looked directly at Rollins, who was watching him through his one remaining eye, waiting for an ambulance someone had finally been allowed to call. Bumpy spoke loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "Life goes on, Mr. Rollins." He took another bite, chewed slowly. "Your daughter's name is Clara. She's 6. She likes stuffed rabbits. And right now, my men are pulling her out of that warehouse on 142nd Street. In 2 hours, she'll be home with her mother. Safe." Rollins's good eye widened. "You think I'm a monster?" Bumpy continued, still eating. "Maybe I am, but I'm a monster who understands what it means to lose a child. I sat in a prison cell and listened to my daughter die because I was too far away, too powerless to save her." He set down his fork, leaned back. "I won't let another father watch his child die, not even a father who just tried to kill me." Bumpy picked up his fork again. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to survive this. You're going to lose that eye. You're going to have scars for the rest of your life, but you're going to live. And you're going to raise Clara. And every time you look in the mirror and see what I did to you, you're going to remember I could have killed you. I chose not to. Your daughter doesn't have to grow up without a father, because I know what it's like to be a father who couldn't save his child." 2 ambulance workers rushed in, loaded Rollins onto a stretcher, carried him out. Bumpy went back to his spaghetti. The jazz band started playing again, slowly, cautiously. Within minutes, conversations resumed. Waiters began cleaning the blood. Life in the Alhambra restaurant continued, as if nothing had happened, except everything had happened. At 8:47 p.m., the restaurant phone rang. The manager, still pale, still shaking, answered. "Alhambra restaurant." A voice on the other end, cold, calm, unmistakable. "Put Bumpy Johnson on the phone." The manager brought the phone to table 14, hand trembling, cord stretched across the restaurant. "Mr. Johnson, it's for you." Bumpy set down his fork, wiped his mouth, took the phone. "Yes? I'm watching from across the street. Dutch Schultz." Bumpy glanced toward the window. A black car was parked on 126th Street, engine running. Through the tinted glass, a silhouette. "My man is bleeding out on your floor," Dutch said. "My money's gone. You win." Bumpy was silent. "Harlem is yours," Dutch continued. "I'm pulling out. Operations, men, money. I'm done. But one day, someone's going to kill you, Bumpy. And when they do, I want you to remember this conversation. I was the smart one. I walked away." Bumpy smiled. "Dutch, when that day comes and someone finally kills me, I want you to know something." "What?" "They won't be eating spaghetti after." Click. Bumpy hung up, went back to his meal. 2 hours later, 132nd Street warehouse. Illinois Gordon and 6 men kicked in the door. Inside, tied to a chair in a back room, was Clara Rollins, 6 years old, red dress, tear-stained face, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Illinois untied her, wrapped her in his jacket, lifted her into his arms. "You're safe now, sweetheart. We're taking you home." Clara looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. "Where's my daddy?" Illinois carried her toward the door. "Your daddy's a very brave man, and he loves you more than anything in the world." Huh. 1 week later, Ulysses Rollins was released from the hospital, lost his left eye, 36 stab wounds stitched and bandaged, 4 surgeries. The doctors called it a miracle. Rollins didn't feel like a miracle. As he left the hospital, a young boy approached him on the street, handed him an envelope. Inside, a train ticket to Detroit, and a note handwritten. "Your daughter is safe. Your debt is paid. Raise her well. Don't make me regret letting you live. BJ." Rollins looked at the ticket, at the note, then at the photograph of Clara in his pocket. He took the train that night, never returned to New York. But that wasn't the end. 3 days later, Dutch Schultz received a package at his social club. Small box, no return address. Inside, packed in ice, Ulysses Rollins' left eyeball, and a note. "An eye for an eye, but I spared his life. Next time you send someone after me, remember, I decide who lives and who dies, not you." Bumpy Johnson. Dutch Schultz stared at that eyeball for a long time. Then he called a meeting with his lieutenants. "We're done in Harlem. Pull everyone out. No more operations. Bumpy Johnson owns it, and anyone who thinks they can take it from him is welcome to try, but I'm not wasting another man." For the next 33 years, Dutch Schultz, and later Lucky Luciano, Frank Costello, Vito Genovese, stayed out of Harlem, because Bumpy Johnson had proven something that night. He wasn't just dangerous. He was merciful, and mercy from a dangerous man is more terrifying than violence, because it means he's in control. He's calculating. He chooses when to kill and when to spare, and you never know which one you're going to get. Years later, 1962, a journalist tracked down Ulysses Rollins in Detroit. He was working construction, blind in one eye, quiet. Nobody knew his past. The journalist asked about the Alhambra. Rollins was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Bumpy Johnson could have killed me. He didn't. He saved my daughter instead. I owed him my life, and then he gave me hers. That's not a gangster. That's something else." Pause. That's a man who lost so much that he refuses to let anyone else lose what he did, even his enemies. The Alhambra restaurant stayed open until 1975. Table 14 remained Bumpy Johnson's table until he died in 1968. Every Friday night, even when Bumpy wasn't there, the staff set a single plate of spaghetti and meatballs at that table, a tribute, a reminder that on June 14th, 1935, a man proved you could be the most feared person in Harlem and still have a heart. You could stab someone 36 times and still save their child. You could take a man's eye and still let him keep his life. Not because you're weak, because you're strong enough to choose mercy when violence is easier. What's dramatized? The specific June 1935 confrontation with Ulysses Rollins, while based on known violent encounters between Bumpy and Dutch Schultz's enforcers, has been dramatized. The kidnapping subplot, waiter twist, and eyeball package are creative enhancements based on the documented brutality of the era and Bumpy's known code of protecting Harlem's children. Sources: Bumpy Johnson, Godfather of Harlem. Karen E. Quinones Miller, Harlem Godfather. Mamie Johnson, FBI organized crime files, period newspaper accounts. Look, if this story hit different, do me a favor. Hit that like button real quick. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We're dropping these untold Bumpy Johnson stories every week, and trust me, the next one's even crazier. I really want to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. This story has traveled from Harlem 1935 to the whole world. Let's see how far it's gone. Turn on notifications so you don't miss it. Because in Harlem, respect wasn't given. It was earned. One plate of spaghetti at a time.